Classified. Thank you so much for joining me.
All good, man. How you making out?
Hey, I'm doing pretty good, just trying to make sense of everything in this quarantine. What's going on over in Enfield?
Half of it's locked down, half of it isn't. It's kind of a confusing thing right now. Like we've been locked down for like 3 weeks. Haven't left the house except for to go get groceries. But then you drive by the hardware store and it's packed. I'm seeing videos of the Toronto airport. I'm still seeing flights leave and people are still on the bus. So it's honestly, it's like, kind of like we're just half-assed doing this. I don't know. It's confusing right now. I just don't know how long we can sit here and do this while half of the world or half of the country is still going to work and doing shit. So it's a
Do you feel
confusing
like it's
time.
not effective right now?
I'm sure it's helping a little bit, but a little bit of help for what we're doing. Like it's not the end of the world, but it is hard to stay in your house for 3 weeks and not do nothing.
Yeah.
So like if people are still going to the work and still doing this and that, it's like you expect us to just sit here and lock ourselves in a box for 2 months while half of the country is still going to work and doing the normal shit. It just seems very, very confusing, you know.
Yeah. No, that
You know,
that definitely
I-
makes
I'm
sense.
sure it's helping a bit. Hopefully, it's helping enough that we see the curve flatten and then we can kind of get back to normal.
Yeah, without question. And of course, for you as an artist, this must be a totally big change because you're used to touring and going out and promoting your stuff and doing all that. So, what was your first steps in terms of tackling this new climate in terms of an artist, and how do you think it's affecting the bottom line for artists in general?
I wasn't too bad. Like we lost a couple shows. I was supposed to play a show in Kingston tonight. Actually, I was supposed to be in Oshawa last night, and then we're supposed to do the Raptors halftime tomorrow. So this was kind of like a big week. I was excited for just to get out on the road. But I literally just finished like my new project 2 3 weeks ago. So I wasn't like in the midst of a big tour or anything. They had a couple shows this week, but some friends they were in the middle of a tour and 2 dates into a 30-date tour and they had to cancel
Yeah.
it and come back. And those guys, I feel a lot more for them. Me, I'm just starting to see like summer festivals starting to get canceled, shit like that.
Hmm.
And for an artist, like that's where I make my money is summer festivals and stuff like that. So it's just weird, man. Like I'm not too bad professionally, but personally, like I like to hang out with my friends. I like my kids to be able to play with their friends. Like,
Hmm.
I look forward to that shit. Not being able to do that, it's just like Groundhog Day. Every day we wake up, it's the same thing, and you go, okay, what's going on today? And try to do some homeschooling with the kids and all that. But it's hard, man. It's not easy because kids want to see their friends, and when you don't do that, and for the first week it wasn't too bad. It was kind of refreshing. We were painting, cleaning up the house, doing shit that we haven't been putting off for years. But
Mm.
now, like, we're between 3 and 4 weeks. It's kind of to the point now where, like, okay, I could see people who might have mental issues like having a real problem right now because it is a bad spot to be in.
Yeah, absolutely, and it makes sense. At first, it brings family together, but then it gets to a point where it's like, okay, when are we going to wrap this up? But I know what you
Yeah,
mean
it's
for
not a
sure.
way to live your life, man. Like this isn't living life. You know what I mean? Like I get what's going. You got to be careful and cautious and stuff, but you got to realize like this is hard for probably a lot. Not so bad for me, but even myself, who I'm used to being home. I work at home. I got my studio. I come home make beats, but I'm starting to feel the kind of like the urge of okay, we got to do something here. We can't just keep doing the same shit every day. This is becoming very demotivating. Like I'm starting to stop working out now. Gave up trying to eat healthy. I'm just kind of taking it hour by hour, going, okay, fuck it. I'm gonna eat some hamburgers now, or bag of chips, or you know what I mean. Just trying to get through the day and try to see that light at the end of the tunnel of where we're going.
In terms of the motivation, because I've heard other people talk about that, how it's tough to stay motivated. What are you drawing from in terms of inspiration right now? And have you ever faced a similar period where you had to sort of get yourself back in the groove?
No, I've never felt like this before, honestly.
Hmm.
Like, you know what I mean? Certain days, maybe for a day, I'd feel like, kind of, you know what I mean? But never for like a week straight where it's like, oh my gosh, let's.
So what do you do?
I was doing a lot of dirt biking and shit. But then, even that, like, me and 4 or 5 of my friends all got street trail bikes. So we, for the first 2 weeks of quarantine, I'd still go out for an hour a day, put on my helmet. We're on motorbikes, so we're all 6 feet away. Like, I felt like it was safe. And then I seen people starting complaining about that shit. And
Hmm.
I'm like, what the fuck is, and they're like, well, you got to go get gas and you got to go do this. And I'm like, well, I just don't, I don't know. It's weird, man. I felt like that was something safe, and that was enough for me to get out of the house for an hour or two a day and feel like I was out doing something, and then that was good. But once I kind of lost that, it's kind of like making beats here and there. But even that's kind of like, I don't know. I've been doing that so much for the last 6 months working on this album that I'm kind of at that point now where I just want to be outside and not doing music right now. So
Yeah, no, I
weird.
know what you mean. And I want to touch on the beat making because that's obviously been a rudiment of your career, and that's been something that's been in the picture forever with you. I'm wondering, does
Mm.
that come and go in terms of prominence? Like, is there times where you focus more on beats and or more on
Yeah, a
rap, or is it both?
little bit back and forth, but you know what I mean? Like usually before I start a project, I'll start making beats. Like right now I'm in beat making mode. Usually the beat making thing happens before the albums. Kind of get 2 or 3 beats or 4 beats that are kind of feeling right, and I start writing to those and building like that. But right now I'm kind of done writing just because I finished the project. So anytime I'm in the studio looking for something to do, it's just working on beats and creating new beats.
Is there anything you can tell us about this project you completed, and maybe in terms of length?
Yeah, I got like an EP done. It's like 6 or 7 songs. Rap Shit was the first single. There's a song called Good News. It's coming out next Friday.
Okay.
So like that's the radio single, and just something I think we need right now with what's going on. Like it's weird because this song was supposed to come out 2 months ago,
Hmm.
and just once or about a month ago, month and a half ago, and then once this virus thing dropped, it kind of made me go like the whole song is about appreciate the small things. There's a lot of bullshit in the world, but appreciate the small things. And it kind of just didn't feel right to drop right when the unknown of the virus was happening, and just seemed insincere to drop a song like, "Hey, forget about the big problems, appreciate the
Hmm.
small things," when the world was kind of going to shit. But I kind of feel like people are starting to get a grasp of it. Um, you know, you see certain provinces, they're not finding new cases and stuff like that. So it seems like there's a little bit of hope there. So I feel like right now is a good time to drop something like that to give people a little bit more hope and just that motivation that I was just talking about of, the everyday repeating and kind of look past that and go, okay, we know something better is coming. Let's just be patient for it.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. And I also feel like, as a primary consumer of music, I'm not releasing it at this point. I find it really comforting to have my favorite artists dropping new stuff and working on new things through this. Because, obviously, artists isn't the number one concern in the world right now, but that's something that can take away from the stress and these pressures and alleviate from it. So I'm
Exactly.
definitely glad. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. No, I think it's a good time to do it. Like I said, I was pretty hesitant at first because it just felt insincere and just I don't know, it didn't feel right or whatever. So we're like, yo, let's just hold everything. And we held it for a month, and now it's kind of jumping back in. And then there's another 5 songs on the project that's going to come out too. And then the acoustic album. I have an acoustic album that's just about done, kind of wrapping that up, and then an acoustic tour that's supposed to happen in October, November, as long as the world don't go to shit and the plants stay as they are.
Yeah, that's sick. So have you
Yeah.
toured acoustically before?
Not tour. We did maybe 4 or 5 shows like it,
And I
but
saw
it's
one
just
of them personally.
yeah, yeah. Which one were you at?
The Live 105 one.
Oh, okay, yeah. Oh, yeah, 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 yeah. So that was with me and Dave. So I got these other 2 guys, Owen, who's my keyboard player, and Brett, my guitar player, and then my drum machine. So that's the whole show is like an hour and a half in theaters, me sitting with my drum machine, him on his keys and his guitar, and it's just like everything's broke down and it's just more about lyrics and stuff like that. So a lot of songs that I wouldn't have necessarily performed at a club at 1 in the morning while everyone was out partying and stuff because it just brought the vibe down. They kind of fit perfect in this world. So it's like there's more personal, um, real message songs have been going over really good at this. Like I see people crying in the crowd, laughing, and just a different vibe of the other show. So I find that's really refreshing for me.
That's crazy. No, that must be really cool because I was thinking about that and I really enjoyed seeing you do acoustic performances live. So I think this is going to be really good for the fans
Yeah,
and
no, I
something new.
find like every like even the few shows we did, the people that had been to a regular show before and seen this, they're like, man, this new thing is really cool just because it's just fresh. I've been doing the other thing for 10, 15 years, so to have these fans that might have came out to my last 7 or 8 tours, they're coming out and being like, oh, this is wicked. It's a whole different way for me to come out and experience this and still support me and not feel like they're just seeing the same shit.
Right. It's still Half Life Records. It's still you, but it's also something new and fresh.
Exactly.
No, that's perfect. The single Rap Shit, I want to talk about that. How did the single come about? It's featuring Dax, Snack the Ripper, and yourself. Was this a project that you initiated, or did you hop on this project?
No, no, that was me. Like I made the beat, wrote my verse, wrote my chorus. That was one of the last songs we did for the ZP, and then it ended up becoming the first single. But I was just writing some rap shit. Like that's kind of how it was. You know what I mean? Like I got my good news track coming out next week. That's a little bit more motivating. I got a track called "Pick Your Poison," which is about people picking their vices. You know, everyone's got a vice in life, whatever it is. So some more like deep thought out tracks or whatever. And then with rap shit, I made the beat. And I was like, man, this shit just smacks. I just want to spit some rap shit, some bars that were like, you know, metaphors and stuff like that. And then I just did the first half of the song. And Dax, I knew of, and he was coming to Halifax, and we talked, and he stopped by the studio, and I was like, man, you want to jump on this? He wrote a verse, jumped on. And with him being from Ottawa, me being from the East Coast, I was like, man, I want to have another Canadian heavyweight on this from the West Coast.
Yeah.
And that's how I get Snack on it. Me and Snap worked before a few times, so I had a good relationship with him. And with him, like this track was getting ready to come out. And I was like, bro, can you record a verse, shoot your part of the video, and send it back in like 3 days? And he did it all. So shout out to Snack the Ripper for coming through in the clutch.
Shout out to Snack, absolutely. You mentioned a 6-song EP roughly. I saw 6 or 7. Okay, I saw you talking in interviews before, or at least a couple, about how you might have been retiring the 16, 17 song album thing. I'm just curious about your theory on that, because you hear a lot of artists talk about the attention spans now of audiences versus a couple years ago.
Honestly, I just sent an email to my management like 10 minutes before this, and I was like, does it even make sense to put out an EP, or should we just drop a new song every 2 weeks for a month and a half? Because I just feel like albums, whether it's independent artists, whether it's fucking J Electronica, whether it's who else dropped an album in the last few weeks that just came and went. Like J Electronica has been working on his album for 10, 12 years, whatever it was when he signed with Jay-Z back in the day.
Yeah.
His album came out, and 2 weeks after it, no one says shit about it. It's like it's over. Like just because there's new records. So I just feel like I'll never do a 16 or 17 song album again, which sucks because I did enjoy doing that. I feel like you can cover so much basis, but people's attention spans, it's just not worth working on an album for a year and a half, 2 years for people to bump it for 3 weeks and be like, oh, that was dope. Cool. What's next? Like that's the shit that gets me. Like on the last few albums, it's like you put out an album, people are like, bro, just checked out the new album. This is so dope. Can't wait for the next one. I'm like, wait for the next one. Like
I just dropped
2 years of my life, and that's, you know, I don't blame people. I'm kind of the same way now too. It's just there's so much new music that it's like, you know, you hear an album for a week or two, you kind of get your fix, and you're kind of like, hey, what's the next one? So it's just a different time, you know, different way of putting out music, and you know, it is what it is. You got to adjust, and I just feel more comfortable doing it this way, trying to give every song its own look. And that's why I shoot videos for like every song too, is just to, you know, once the album comes out, at least the video gives the song another look and gives it another push, and you know, it gets people talking about it.
That's true. It's a whole different outlook on the song, and you can put maybe more of what you intended to be seen. I want to go back a little bit closer to the beginning with you. We touched a little bit about the beat making. What sort of stole your heart first? Was it rap verses, or was it the rap music, the beats?
No, rap verses.
Verses, okay.
When I was like 15 or 16, I didn't know how to make beats. You know, I mean, I barely knew how to rap either, but it was just something I got into. And then Joe Run, who's like this Halifax hip hop legend, whatever you want to call him, he's the one that, you know, I was buying beats off him because I needed beats. I wanted original beats. So I was buying beats off him. I think the first 3 I bought were 3 beats for $60. It was like $20 a beat.
Nice.
Yeah, it was a great deal now that I think about it. But, you know, it kind of went from there going, okay, am I going to just buy beats every time, or can I just go buy a sampler for $200 and start kind of working it out myself? And that's initially why I got into it, just because I needed beats and didn't want to afford to keep buying them from somebody else. But once I got into making beats, and that's what made me an artist, not just a rapper. Like now I can make full songs, and it's not just, oh, give me a beat, I'll rap my verses, I'm done. Like the beat making, the producing, the arranging, and the engineering of the song is more of the art. The rap is like one of 3 things to me now. You know what I mean? It's like the rap thing, the producing, the beat making, the business side of everything. But the beat making just makes it fun. I like making beats. It's just not as thought out. When lyrics, I'm sitting there thinking, and trying to make sense of everything. With beats, it's like roll the joint and just see what happens. You know what I mean? Sometimes you might waste your time. Sometimes you make some shit and go, wow, where did this come from? And, you know, so
An
I
empty
find
canvas.
exactly. I think the beat making is like 50% of the creative process. So it kind of opened a whole nother side of me that I have a lot of fun doing. And personally, for me, it balances it. If I just wrote raps all the time, I'd get bored of that shit. So as soon as I get bored of writing raps, I'll go make beats. As soon as I get bored of that, I'll get back on the rap. So it kind of gave me an outlet to get away from something and still feel like I'm being productive.
So always a way of reinventing yourself while sticking to what you love to do.
Yeah.
Wow, that's crazy, man. And you know, I heard something that Eminem said, and I'm curious about your perspective on this because you're such an experienced rapper and producer. Eminem was talking about how he's released so much and so much quintessential stuff that sometimes he struggles to figure out what to put next on that canvas. For you, as time goes on, do you just come up with more and more ideas, or do you ever feel something like that?
No, I feel like that after every album. Like when I finish an album or project, I feel like I'm kind of exhausted. You know, all my best lines that I had wrote down on my phone are gone. The best beats I was saving are gone. The concepts that I was like, you know, this was a cool concept, used it, you know. So, but then you go live life for a year or whatever, and then you start, you know, going to do this, and something pops in your head. You write down your phone and go, okay, there's another idea, and eventually you start building those ideas. And then it comes down to beats. Like I said, when I come out to the studio, I'll throw on a beat and start making a beat. And as soon as I get inspired from something, be like, oh, this beat's crazy. Shit, okay. And you get this vision of what the song could be. Kind of builds that excitement again of like, okay, here we go again. And then it starts again. And kind of that's how every project kind of goes.
Wow, that's really interesting.
Just getting inspired, I guess, is kind of what it is. As soon as you get that little spark of, oh, shit, this could be this. And then it kind of opens up a whole... You know, I'm curious, where can I take this? How can I make this sound? And then you're back into the project.
Yeah, no, that completely makes sense. Another thing I wanted to touch on in terms of your writing is that some of my most favorite memorable classified lines are the ones where you're incredibly open and vulnerable, and we get that a lot in your music. I'm curious, how long did it take you to get comfortable being so open and honest with some of this stuff? Because you can hear in your voice some of this stuff isn't even comfortable to say. It maybe I'm wrong, but
yeah, man, I find that's the best shit. Like I find stuff that I second guess. Go, man, should I put this out here? Or is this too personal? Like, you know, like putting out that I lost my virginity before I masturbated. I remember I put that in a song, and my brother was like, "What the fuck are you talking? Why would you put this in here?" And I'm like, that shit is hilarious to me. Like, I don't know how many people have went through that, but it's one of those things that people probably feel uncomfortable to talk about. But if you hear it in a song, you can laugh about it and you kind of joke about it. And I don't know. I find, like you said, those are kind of my best moments too, of like certain things like that I'm kind of second guessing. Oh, should I say this? And then you say it, and it kind of becomes the most memorable line of the song. So anytime I can find something like that, I put it out there now. But it did take a while. Like it wasn't like, you know, I was 15 and I felt comfortable saying this shit. Like when I was 15, and I never would have said that. I would never put that out there because I'd feel like a clown, whatever it is. But as you get older and you get more comfortable with yourself and you realize no one's opinions mean shit in this world. Like that's their opinion. That's how they feel. This is my world. Like we really all live in our own world. How you want to take what people say to you, it's up to you. It really makes no difference in your everyday life. Like, and the older you get, you realize that. And I think that's why a lot of older people get cranky too, is they kind of just get fed up with people and just go, you know what? Like nothing you said for the last 20 years affects my life at all. Sometimes you might even think it does, but as you get older, you realize, fuck, that guy's opinion doesn't mean shit. And, you know, it might have bugged you before. And you just realize everybody's got their own life, their own problems. And when they wake up in the morning, they're not really thinking about you until you give them a reason to think about them. So it is what it is.
These are the facts, absolutely. So at what point did you, because you had a couple of things go on with some different labels, and I know you own your own project right now. Do you ever talk about label situations?
Sure.
Cool, man. So I'd be curious with the 2014 split. You were talking about how a label sort of was trying to pull you in a couple different directions, and you weren't comfortable with that. I was just wondering if you could open up about that situation.
That was probably the Atlantic deal when Inner Ninja blew up in Canada and 3 Foot Tall. I got a deal with Atlantic in the States. So that was like my first major label deal with an American record label, just because, I never had much success in the States. And when they reached out, I was like, yeah, I'll do the deal, but I'm not like going to grind it out in the States in the minivan for 6 months. And, like I was comfortable in Canada. I'm making my money. I'm investing in it. So it's not like make or break. I got to do this deal in the States to survive. Like I can still rap and do my shit in Canada. I'm comfortable.
Yeah.
And they seem cool with that. They're like, cool, we'll take the song to radio if we can blow it up, like that. And, they tried to do their thing. It didn't go the way they planned it. But certain things came up of like, they wanted me to work with Cody Simpson and do a remix to one of his songs. And I was like, you know what I mean? I still had my rep and what I built here. Like Cody Simpson is like, at this time anyway, I don't know what the hell he does now, but at this time he was like, shit for like 7-year-old girls to be like,
Yeah.
oh, I'm like, I don't want that to be my introduction to most American listeners thinking this is what I do, because this isn't what I do. Yeah, I hit Inner Ninja, and it was a pop-ish song, and young kids liked it. And I'm cool with that. I'm comfortable with myself to be like, cool, it is what it is. But if I was working on an album just even in Canada, and I was going to put out my first song ever to introduce to the world, it wouldn't have been Inner Ninja, like, because that's not my typical sound, I guess you could say. So when they were trying to do that, they wanted me to do this remix with Simple Plan too, and it just wasn't my type of thing. I was like, man, it's not the music I'm in. And they weren't dicks about it, but they worded it as in like, hey man, if you want us in the label to support you, you got to support our decisions that we make with you and for you. And I was like, that's really cool how you worded that, guys, but I'm not a fucking idiot. Like, and
Right.
it wasn't like do it or you're done, but the way they worded it, it was like, oh, that's how you're gonna try to do it.
It's
Okay.
code
And I
4.
was like, yeah. So as long as I was smart about it, but I was just like, no, man, like that's not my shit. I don't want to do that. And they brought me the B.O.B. record higher. Like, so, there was good things that came out of it. I love that record. I thought it was a
Yeah,
dope
same.
record. I'm a fan of B.O.B. I worked with him before, so it made sense. But it was just like I had to be comfortable and with what made sense. But if I was a brand new artist and I signed with Atlantic and they brought me that shit and gave me those things, I probably would have did it because I was like, fuck, I can't mess this up. Let me do this. But where I built my foundation already in Canada, it was kind of like, nah, I don't need it. And if you guys can't support me, cool. I'll keep my advance and we'll be done. And, it's kind of what happened.
Yeah, and that makes sense. And that's the main reason I asked, is because a lot of different rappers, even as high up as Jay-Z, they talk about how it's not worth it to take a label deal for a lot of up-and-coming artists, and they should own their own masters and do it themselves. But a lot of up-and-coming artists don't have, the upfront to do music videos and to promote themselves and
Straight
stuff like
up.
that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like Jay-Z was selling drugs and shit, supposedly. That's
Yeah.
how he had money to buy all this shit. But no,
Right.
I don't believe none of that shit of like people who are like, you don't need a major label deal, or people who are like, stay independent for life, or you need a major. Like every person's situation is different.
Yeah.
Like people who told me like I shouldn't have did a major label deal. I'm so fucking glad I did major label deals. Like the amount of shit I've learned, the connections I made, especially in Canada. Like I have no ill will towards Sony, who I signed with first. Now I'm with Universal. Well, I'm a half life, but it's distributed through Universal, and
Right.
I have great relationships with both of those companies. I've never been in a bad position with them where I was like, man, fuck these guys. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
I learned a ton of stuff. I never got robbed. I made a lot of money from the situations I had, but it was just the situation I was in where it worked for me. I was already selling 60,000 records before I signed a major label deal. So I had power in my corner to be like, nah, I'm not doing that. And yes, I'll do that. And you know what I mean? But for a young artist who was like, hey man, here's $500,000, come do this. If I was 18 and someone offered me 100, I'd take the money and I'd be on the label. And you know what I mean? But just with my situation, how it came up, it worked for me in my favor to do the things that the way I did it. But it's just, I think it's different with every artist in every situation of where they're at in life and what's going on. And maybe a major label deal makes sense for you. Maybe staying independent does. But I used to be the guy too, man. Fuck record labels. Like, you know what I mean? My early records, I'd be that guy rapping about fuck major record labels. But as I grew up, I just realized like, it just depends on the artist situation and where they're at.
And you could do it all on your own. At what point did you feel like, okay, I'm established? Because obviously anybody with eyes knows it's like you and the Trailer Park Boys. The East Coast is like you're the staples. At what point did you start feeling like a staple? Because you even talk on your 2014 record a little bit about that.
Probably like around, like not even on the East Coast shit, but in Canada in general. Because like my shit was out before
Yeah,
Drake. Like you got to remember, there was no Drake, there was no OVO, there was no
facts.
Weekend, none of that shit. So like Canadian hip hop was like, who the fuck, you know? So like when Hitchhiking Music came out, like I felt like I was the top artist in Canada for hip hop in
Hmm.
general. Like I sold
I'd
twenty
agree.
thousand of that album. I did 46 tour dates across Canada. Um, and then like my competition at that time, like Cardinal, maybe Mad Child. Like there was no Mercules
Hmm.
then. There was no Snack the Ripper even then. He was still kind of a young artist on the come up. So you know what I mean? Maybe those three artists. I'm probably missing Chaos. I guess Chaos was doing this
True.
thing a lot at that time. But that was it. You know what I mean? So like Hitchhiking Music boycotting the industry even in that era, I kind of felt like, yo, I'm at the top of my game in my country. I wasn't even looking at the East Coast, and I kind of think that's why I did excel because I didn't focus on just the East Coast so much. I didn't kind of go, oh, I'm blowing up in Nova Scotia, cool, I'm the fucking man, and I wasn't comfortable with that. I was like, no, I'm still grinding out. I'm going to tour the rest of the country,
Yeah.
and you know, I don't know.
No,
I don't know if what was the original question?
no, it's okay. I was just curious as to at what point you felt like a Canadian staple, especially in your home province.
Yeah, I'd say
So
boycott the
hitchhiking
industry,
music.
making music, yeah, boycott around that world.
Yeah, no, that totally makes sense, and that is definitely where it seemed to have plateaued. And like, even because I went through my middle school and high school years in Halifax, and like it was just constantly classified, and it's everywhere in Canada, worldwide, and
Yeah, and I
obviously,
think it was the timing at that time too. Like there wasn't a lot of artists around, a lot of speaking about shit I talk about. Like I think that my timing and coming as a middle class kid from a small town in Canada and rapping about that, people were like, "Oh, this is dope. I've never heard anybody represent this part of the world before in hip hop." So
yeah.
like that shit was yeah,
And you're one of the
yeah.
first Canadian rappers to sort of embrace cannabis culture in his own unique way, and that's something I always found really cool too. It really sets you apart from the crowd as well because it wasn't legal at the time, but it's like this guy knows what's up. So it was. I always liked that as
Yeah,
well.
man. And like and just I was always like that because I never did hard drugs and shit. And I was like seeing my friends who did hard drugs and people who did it and the things they would do to get these hard drugs. And I was like, what the fuck? So, my poison, my vice was weed. And you know what I mean? I could smoke that shit every day. I could get up, feel great the next day. And, so far so good. No long term plans, you know what I mean? Knock on or no long term effects.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, and the amount of festivals we got banned from for smoking weed, like, and it's just so fucking stupid, man. Like, even looking at it now, like, promoter A who's working with, say, Telus or was it Telus or TD out in Whistler? He's out back doing blow off the table. I go on stage and smoke a joint, and they ban me for ever doing a festival there again.
Oh my
And I'm like,
gosh.
what the fuck is wrong with yeah? So that shit, I'm just like, cool, and I lost a lot of money. I remember like a couple gigs we got booked for some big festivals, and last minute they're like, wait, so and so just called. They got to cancel this because of what happened out in Whistler, and
Wow.
I'm like, yeah. And now it's all legal, and everyone's so proud, and they all want the weed, sponsors for their festivals, and it's just like,
They'll
I
be like,
get
"Can you
it. It
smoke
was
this on stage
illegal,
for us?"
and what's up? Yeah, exactly. Yeah, yeah. The tables turned, but yeah, it's yeah, it's a different world now. But I like how you said like about boycott because like when I kind of plateaued, got to that point because I feel like I remember when Trial and Error came out, people were like, "Yo, that's as big as what you're gonna get." We sold 5,000 copies of that. I did a little tour. And then Boycott came out, then Hitchhiking. They're like, oh shit, okay, you plateaued. You sold 20,000 records. Even the major labels, I think, were still kind of like, okay, the guy's getting older. Do we really want to sign him now? We think he did what he did. And then Inner Ninja 3 Foot Tall Higher comes out and blows everything out of the fucking water I ever did, commercially, whatever you want to call it. And it's just, you never know when you're going to hit that plateau. A lot of times you think you hit it, you might stall for a couple of years, and then boom, something else happens, and you're right back up there. But as long
Hmm.
as I'm having fun with it and still enjoying myself, and support my family with it, I'm good.
That's really interesting. So at that first point, was it hard
Mm.
for you to remain hungry when everybody told you you've reached the top?
Oh yeah, no, I was good. I knew they were stupid. Like for the
Oh, so
first
so you knew.
for the first one, just the first one, Trial and
Yeah.
Error, because when that came out, that was like my first album I made that I actually really liked. That I was like, yo, my beats sound right. I got my flow. There's bar, you know what I mean? Before
Hmm.
it was always like, yeah, this is cool. I like doing it, but it could be better. I got to get it better. So when Trial and Error came out, like I was feeling myself and feeling what was going on, and I knew what was to come just because I started working on new stuff. But it was just like a couple people, I'd call them acquaintances, and I heard from other people of like, yo, so and so said your new record came out, and it's really good, but you're pretty much done after this. And it was just a small thing, but it's something that always stuck in my mind of like, really, you think up that? Okay. And and then 15, 17 years later, I'm still doing just what I've been doing. So I use that shit as motivation sometimes. But then at the same time, like with hitchhiking music, I did kind of feel like, okay, this is probably as big as it's going to get in Canada. Like, you know what I mean? Like there was no hip hop stations in Canada really at this time playing hip hop. So it was like Much Music was all you had to get your video on that.
Yeah.
And, we had the #1 video on Much Music at one point and all this stuff of all these plateaus that we hit that I was like, shit, maybe this is it. And then once radio opened a little bit more in Canada and, with 3 Foot Tall and Higher and Inner Ninja and all that came out, it was just like, okay, a new plateau.
Yeah, a whole new level. And on Inner Ninja, how does that song come about? Because David Myles, folk acoustic type singer, yourself rapper, how do those worlds meet?
Being a producer, I think more so than anyway. We met at the Music Nova Scotia Awards at like 2 a.m. at a ping pong table in the basement of like the venue where the whole thing was. And we just started talking, and he listened to like old Far Side and old hip hop from back in the day. So I was like, oh, that's cool. And I knew he played horns. So the first thing Dave ever did for me, he just came over and played horns on Oh Canada, I think it was actually.
Oh, wow.
He did. Yeah. And then we went from there to, get in the studio one day, and we did Day Doesn't Die off my Handshakes and Middle Fingers album. And it was just like, hey, man, I got this little chorus idea and some chords. You think I'd come out and maybe we could make something? And it was just kind of like, yeah, cool. Let's see what happens. We made that. So then when I was working on the Inner Ninja album, he just came out. We did a bunch of songs through the day, just kind of like a verse and a chorus and a rough beat or whatever. And we were kind of done. We had one song picked out, and I was like, cool, I want this song for my album. I want to start working on this. And then just as he was leaving, he was like, oh, I got this other thing. And he was just like, just playing the guitar line. I was like, fuck, it's kind of cool. Like, I don't always listen to music as hip-hop artist classified going, yo, that's a fucking banger. Like, I listen to it as a producer and go, man, that shit stands out. Like, I don't know what it is about that guitar riff, but it's a cool vibe. And then he started singing, I've read the rules before I broke them. It's like, man, what the fuck is this? And it was almost like just put a smile on my face to be like, I've never heard nothing like this. What is this? And we were just recorded a rough demo over just like a basic kick drum. And that's where it all started, I remember I sent it to my manager and he was like, yeah, it's all right. I wouldn't bother finishing it. And I was like,
he wasn't
sure?
Crazy about it?
Not at all. He was just like, yeah. And then, we put it out. It's the biggest Canadian hip hop record of all time. Like it sold like 600,000 copies in Canada, something ridiculous.
Did you know it was going to be a hit?
I knew it was going to be something just because how different it was. But like, it was supposed to be the second single for the album because it was, again, like whenever I drop a first single for an album, I always wanted to be something that's like more my world, like some hip hop shit that's like,
yeah,
this is what I want to be represented. I can have these quirky little songs, but I don't want it to be my main shit. So Anything Goes was supposed to be the first single, which we did put it out, but Universal was like, the first radio song has got to be Inner Ninja. Like, that's got to be the first song. And it took some convincing to me, and I was like, oh, all right, but I want to drop my hip-hop track first. I want to shoot a video, let that sit out for 2 or 3 weeks, then we'll go to radio with Inner Ninja. And they're cool with that. And that shit just blew right up. So that was, they made the right choice. They were the ones that picked it, said, let's go with this first to radio, and I kind of trusted them, and they did the thing.
It's insane, and it must have just gone crazy from there. It must have been a pretty wild time for you.
Yeah, it was, well, just because I always had, like, what do you call them? Small hits. Like, certain people knew it, but it wasn't like Joe Blow down the road would know the song unless he followed my career or followed hip-hop in Canada type shit. But, yeah, I remember at one point that song was selling, like, what was it? Was it 13,000 copies a week? Like singles, like just like, and it just kept going up. I'm like, holy fuck, I just made 15 grand this week doing nothing except sitting home watching this song sell. You know what I mean? Crazy. So like, yeah, just being where, if I was 19 and that happened, maybe it wouldn't hit me as hard because I'd be like, maybe this is what I expect to happen. But where I kind of grinded for so many years and so many albums and so many different plateaus, when we hit that, it was like, holy fuck, I didn't think we'd ever get to this point of, pushing records like this.
Yeah, and it's crazy, and it's insane to watch the evolution and how you've stuck around, man. Like, the country loves you so much. All of us love you, dude, and it's incredible. And to see you working with the people you've worked with, dude. I mean, looking at the resume, it's insane. I don't know if you could pick like a favorite collaboration because there's so many. I mean, Raekwon, Royce the 5'9", Snoop Dogg.
Yeah, yeah. No, the Snoop one was big for me just because we got to do it in the studio together, and I
This
grew up
studio
on.
you're in?
Sorry?
The studio you're in now?
No, we made a makeshift studio in Truro at a hotel.
Oh wow.
He was shooting Trailer Park Boys,
Hmm.
so we brought a studio up there and did it in like this. But we actually got to hang out, smoke some weed, chill, shoot the shit. And that's like one of my heroes. When I was 15, my sister's friends used to come over. I used to play Snoop Dogg records and say, "Yo, this is my new song," and like faking the funk, trying to impress my sister's
You'd
friends.
say
And
it
shit.
was you rapping?
Yeah, 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 yeah. And they'd be like, "Oh yeah, you sound really good." It's like, yeah. But you know what I mean. So doing that with Snoop was crazy. Raekwon again, Wu Tang. I grew up on, so the Raekwon record, the Joe Budden record. I really loved how that came out.
Yeah.
And then the Royce records too. Royce is probably my top two MCs of all time. So being able to work with Royce 2 times now. Yeah, we did 2 different records. So yeah,
Crazy.
man, I feel blessed because those are my heroes, man. I got to work with them, so it's kind of like cool. I did that. I got a song on the new album called "It's a Trip, But I Love It." It's kind of saying, my whole thing in this game was all I wanted was appreciation from the ones that I appreciated. Nothing sophisticated. And all I ever needed was financial security to make sure that this music wouldn't murder me. And then it kind of talks about how I work with Snoop and Primo, and I got money, and my family's good now. And, I
Wow.
kind of look at the game different now and go, okay, I reached my goals. I did what I wanted. Now what am I doing? You know what I mean? And that's kind of what the song's about.
That's incredible, man. Well, it's insanely inspiring. And Classified, I thank you so much for sharing the time with me today, man. It's been incredible to speak with you, and I'm a big supporter of what you do.
Appreciate it, bro. Thanks for the talk.